You know, things genuinely continue to look worse and worse for the gaming industry. 2025 seems to be the year that it's coming for everybody that was relying on government funding, was relying on outside sources to be able to fund their projects. Instead of giving gamers what they wanted, they were taking their salaries and boosting their salaries with government money instead of trying to actually sell a product and hope that they are successful. Well, apparently it seems as if there is another company that seems to be struggling with lack of funding, and that comes from actual ex-Bethesda talent. They were making a video game called Wyrdsong. Now, Wyrdsong was an RPG that was being made from a crew of people that used to work at Bethesda and Obsidian, but apparently it looks like they can no longer secure any kind of funding after NetEase had initially invested over $10 million into the company to produce this video game. Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, I remember this trailer Wyrdsong when it dropped a couple of years ago, and people were actually decently excited for it for the most part. It was a video game that was touted to be the next big thing, made from people that made the big thing, right? Obviously, ex-Bethesda and ex-Obsidian talent working together, that sounds like a fantastic thing. But apparently, that is no longer the case. So let's get into this article, guys, from PC Gamer. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. So it says Wyrdsong, the RPG from ex-Bethesda talent, isn't dead, but it's no longer an open world. We're down to a skeleton crew. The next game from the project lead of Fallout 76 has been scaled back amid rough industry seas. Now, whenever I hear Fallout 76 project lead, I immediately get a little bit sus because Fallout 76 was absolutely terrible when it released, and I'm sure people are enjoying it now many years later, but Fallout 76 was a disaster. When it first came out, when you want to talk about broken launches, that had probably the worst launch, or one of these worst, I would say one of the worst launches, aside from Cyberpunk 2077. It had to have one of the worst launches in gaming history. Fallout 76 was a joke for a reason, and it took forever for them to finally fix it and make it somewhat playable. It says, you may remember Wyrdsong from Gamescom opening night live, where it was announced 3 years ago as a trippy new open-world RPG from veterans of Skyrim, Fallout, and the Outer Worlds. Set against the backdrop of a warped medieval Portugal, it was intended to explore the mythological origins of the Knights of Templar, letting players create their own character and set out across a 12th century landscape of castles, coastline, and mountains. Now, that sounds fucking awesome. I'm not going to lie to you. The concept sounds amazing. I really wish that they could see this through, because I would love to see a video game with a concept like that. I really would. But unfortunately, its developer, Something Wicked Games, had not had access to the infamously deep coffers of the Templars. Back in 2022, the studio was funded by a $13.2 million seed investment from NetEase. That might sound like a lot, but it's really only a twinkle in an old wizard's eye when it comes to grand RPGs in the mode of Bethesda and Obsidian. The plan was to woo further talent and investors with the trailer and build Wyrdsong, pronounced Wyrdsong, with the help of an eventual team totaling around 70 people. So it seems like what happened, and it's quite unfortunate, is that there is a lot of mismanagement of funds, a lot of mismanagement of time. It looks like they really couldn't do much with the almost $14 million of investment that they got from NetEase, and it seems as if now it's all falling apart. They announced the firing of the majority of their staff, and that has led them now to working with a skeleton crew that, for all intents and purposes, unless they can secure funding somewhere else, I just don't see how they're going to pull this together. This game will probably be announced as dead, and the studio is probably going to be announced as shut down within the next year or two. I got to imagine. Clearly, something went wrong. In March of last year, reports emerged that Something Wicked had laid off much of its staff, which was very difficult. Co-founder Jeff Gardner says, now, I believe most of the staff has found other employment, but I know not 100% of them, so it's been a terrible time in the industry. The layoffs were an attempt to extend the runway for Wyrdsong's development, giving the studio more time to find the funding that it needed. At the same time, the remaining team scaled back its vision for what Wyrdsong would be. We were making a big open-world RPG, Gardner says. The way I have learned to do them requires a lot of people to do that, which means a lot of money that was not forthcoming in the industry. It seems as if they had a way bigger, actual scale in mind that was not, it was not matching their budget. You know what I mean? It seems as if they tried to go with the scale first and the budget second, which is really stupid. right? I don't understand why you would do that. I feel like you would go with what you have first, work with what you have. If you know you have $14 million, do not hire a team that requires 60. Does that make sense? Do not do things that are going to require $60 million, for example. You should be working within the confines of your means. And if you go way past that, and then you complain that you cannot secure funding, and then you got to fire almost everybody, then that's really poor management. And that comes down to the main issue that's affecting the gaming industry right now, or one of the main issues, is that people seemingly just don't know how to manage their teams. They don't know how to manage their money. They don't know how to manage their budgets. And it ends up either exploding the budget where major corporations have to pay for it, or it ends up at the closure of the studios because they can't secure the funding to finish the game, which is happening now more than ever because, quite frankly, the money's not there anymore. The government money that these companies used to rely on, the investments from USAID, for example, it's just not there anymore. They're not able to secure that funding anymore, or other investors that would rely on taking government money in order to spread their own investment. That's not happening anymore either. Simply put, the money's just not there. And now people are starting to realize that, studios are starting to realize that, and this is why we are experiencing closures left and right in the year 2025. This all started the moment Trump got in office. I really do genuinely believe that. If you look at the numbers, the moment he got inaugurated, studios started closing down left and right because they couldn't secure funding anymore. It is so obvious what's going on, and it's only going to get worse. You're going to see more and more studios close down, and unless they are major studios, you're just not going to be able to secure funding as easily as you used to back in the day. Something Wicked therefore made a second prototype of Wyrdsong, this time for a zone-based RPG that wouldn't require the sheer scale of an open world. Gardner name-checks Avowed, a sensibly scoped example of the genre which PC Gamer has recently celebrated despite its limited reactivity. Avowed is fucking trash, bro. I played Avowed all the way to the end, fell asleep twice during stream. It was absolutely garbage. But see, here's my question though. If the second version of your game, a zone-based RPG that wouldn't require the scale of the game that you were originally going for, why didn't you initially start with this? Why didn't you start with the zone-based RPG and then work from there? I don't understand why you started with such a massive scale when your budget was $14 million. I don't understand. I really don't. You're out here trying to say, well, we were trying to pitch the idea and hope to secure more funding. It doesn't, like, why are you making a video game knowing that you're not going to be able to finish it unless you magically get funding? Was funding that readily available back in the day that you thought you could do this and get away with it? It's absolutely insane. You should have started off with a smaller scale, zone-based RPG, honed in on that, and then maybe if you secured more funding for that game and you were able to increase the scale, then you perhaps could have changed it little by little to become a little bit more open world from that smaller zone-based RPG scale. But the simple matter is that you just didn't do that. You decided to go well above your means, and now you are struggling for it. He says, and we decided to add a roguelike element to it, Gardner says, because the whole game was dealing with themes of the nature of life and death. What happens when you die? We decided that naturally lent itself into this type of gameplay. So we took everything we made and repurposed it. You should have just started that off from the start, unfortunately. But it looks like they're going to have to learn their lesson the hard way. So unfortunately, Wyrdsong is going to be in development hell, I think, for a little while, until the eventual announcement that the studio is most likely going to be shutting down, because I just don't see how they're going to be able to secure the amount of funding that they need in order to make up that massive loss that they have towards NetEase in the amount of $14 million. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.